Hello and welcome to Mr. Tom Plays 2048, in which I, Mr. Tom, am going to play 2048. Now, 2048 is a web-based game that a lot of people like to play on their smartphones, but I prefer to play it on a desktop computer because of the arrow keys on the keyboard, which I think make play go a lot faster and therefore makes it a lot more fun. Now, before I start, I'm going to note that I understand that 2048 is an unauthorized clone of a for-pay app on smartphones called Threes, which is available on iOS and Android. And I understand that it's a clone, and I want to let everyone know that I like Threes. I have paid to support the developer of Threes, and I highly recommend that you do the same. But on the other hand, 2048, while it is a clone, is a little bit different in that I think it's easier, which some people would see as a flaw in the game, but I think it actually it makes it more pleasant for me to do while I am listening to a podcast or an audiobook, which is one of the things that I like to do. While I'm playing mindless games like this. So 2048 is a very good audiobook listening game to keep my hands occupied and to keep some part of my brain occupied, which helps me focus on the story. Threes is okay, but it's not as good as 2048 in that regard, although I agree that it is a better designed and all-around better game by any objective measure. But in any case, 2048, if you don't know, is a game where you use the arrow keys or a swipe on the screen of your smartphone to move tiles around the board, like so. I'm about to press the down key, which would bring that 2 down. Now, in 2048, when you collide two tiles like this, they combine into 1. So 2s combine into 4. If I take a couple 4s and combine them like that, they will combine into 8. If I take a couple of 8s and combine them, they will become 16, and so on and so forth. And the object of the game is to eventually get a tile that says 2048, at which point you have won the game, although even at that point you can still continue to play if you want and see if you can get a higher tile, which is something I'm going to be trying to do in this Let's Play. So the goal I'm going to be pursuing is I am going to try to get a 2048, so I'm going to keep restarting and replaying the game until I get 2048. And once I get 2048, I'm going to keep playing and see how far I can get. And then after I get 2048, and then after I die in the game, you die, of course, when you fill up the board and you can't make any more moves. After that happens, that's when I'm going to call it a day. So I don't know if I'm going to get this all done in one video or if I'm going to have to spread it across 2 different videos, but we'll see. Now, 2048 strategy. You might think that the best thing to do would be to just flail around randomly and hope, but there's something better to do, which is I would call it playing towards a corner. I don't know if there's a better name for this. I don't read strategy blogs or anything for 2048, if such a thing even exists. This is just something I kind of figured out through my own play. You pick a corner. In my case, it's the bottom right-hand corner, although it could be any corner. And you always try to make sure that the biggest tile you're dealing with is in that corner, and all other tiles are pushing toward it along one of the walls that's adjacent to it. So in this case, you might notice I'm pushing tiles a lot more to the right-hand wall than I am to the lower wall, and the reason for that is because leaning up against a wall like this makes it easy for you to have freedom of movement. Like, for instance, you see here I'm pushing things up and I'm pushing things down, and then I can also push things towards the right, and that really isn't disturbing any of the tiles on the right-hand wall, unless, as in this case, there's something to combine. So that gives you a nice bit of stability, which keeps your corner piece where you want it, and overall, I think that's the best way to play this game. If you've ever played this game before, you might find what I'm saying terribly obvious, in which case I apologize. One thing that does happen sometimes is, though, you sometimes have to abandon the stability of your wall, and in that case, well, we'll talk about that when it happens, and I'm sure it will. I mean, in an ideal game, I suppose it wouldn't, but the ideal game is rarely the game that you get. And so I'm assuming that at some point, even though I'm doing pretty well right now, I am going to have to abandon the stability of that lower corner, as sad as it might sound. But as of right now, I'm actually doing pretty good. I've got 512, which means I'm only 2 milestone tiles away from the 2048 goal. But at this stage, the game does keep getting harder and harder. Now, if you look at what I've got here, there's no down movement that I can make. There's no movement towards the right that I can make. And moving to the left would disturb my right-hand wall. moving up would risk displacing 512, because if I move up, the 512 goes up, and something could spawn under there. So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to try my best to keep anything from spawning under the 512, which means abandoning the right-hand wall very briefly, and now I've got a 2 there to deal with. So we're going to have to figure out how to deal with that 2 there for just a sec. There we go. Okay, so that 2 is now 4, the 4 is now an 8. So what I'm doing is I'm building under the 32 until I get a 32 there, and then can ride it down, basically. So we'll see how that works in just a second. Okay, so I've lost a little bit of mobility here, because as you can see, the wall, we've got the wall, the column that goes 216, 64, 8, that's a little bit, that's swamped. That can't move anywhere. But, alright, so we've got a little bit more mobility here once again. Alright, let's see. Got that turned into a 4. Alright, so we've got a 16 there, so we're almost to what we need. We've got a 16 with an 8 beneath it, so we turn that 8 to a 16, the 16 to a 32, that to a 64, right? And then there's 128 on top of it. So we need another 64 there. Alright, so we got a 32. See, we're moving, we're getting this done. And I always find that it is best to sort of, there you go, to work towards a goal like that, to sort of clean up the wall and keep it, keep sticking to that strategy even when it seems like it's falling apart. Try your best to repair it, because once you abandon that, it's kind of a free-for-all, and you're trying to outthink yourself, and it makes it a little bit more difficult. So if you have that solid plan and you can stick to it, that makes it a lot easier to win the game. I got a 256 on top of a 512. So what I'm doing here, as you might be able to conceptualize, is that 32 that's right there above the 256. I'm trying to turn that into a 64, and I've got it. And now I'm trying to turn it into a 128, and I'm sure we're not that far off from being able to do that. Alright. Okay. Alright, we got 128, and now that 8 has to be turned into 128. And we're getting there. It's a 64, so we just need to bring in another 64, so that can become a 128. Okay, alright. So we've got 128, combine that down, combine that down, combine that down. So we've got a 1024, which, as you might be able to tell, is the last tile before 2048. So what we need to do is we need to make another 1024, preferably right on top of that 1024, so that we can just combine it down with ease. So we're going to continue to try to keep things stable. In this case, see, I'm going to move the wall over here because I have to, and then move it back. Move it again and move it back. Alright, so alright, we got a 64 there. Yeah, so oops. Alright, I didn't mean to move that up. You want to kind of avoid moving that 1024 out of the corner, because there's always the risk that something, oh, see, I just did it again. Not thinking, but you know, it didn't, see, nothing spawned there, so I'm fine, and I can move it right back to, oh, I just moved it up again. I hit the wrong arrow key. Alright, so this time I'm going to keep trying not to let anything spawn under that 1024 or to the right of it, because we want it to keep its place right there in the corner. Sometimes in the end game, it's better to abandon that strategy if you think you have a better way of doing things. But as a general rule, I find it's better to leave it rooted there. Alright, so I'm going to either move the 256. Oh, and nothing spawned there. Yeah. So sometimes you just have to move back and then forth again, because you need to give something else a chance to spawn, so that you can, have more available moves. Because as new pieces spawn, that opens up, new things you can move, which make it is advantageous to you, because you just got to keep those keys moving so that you can keep combining those tiles. I'm saying something really obvious right here, because that's the whole goddamn game. Alright. Oh no. Alright. Yeah, so let's do that. Let's do that. I want that 4 to turn to an 8. There we go. Alright, so we got a 128 on top of a 256. So I just need one more 128 up there, and we're actually doing pretty good here. I mean, I don't want to speak too soon, but I honestly think I'm going to be able to win this one without even restarting, so that I don't have to be embarrassed in front of a YouTube audience, which, to be frank, is not the way this game usually goes with me. It's usually like one win per like a dozen or so losses, although the board is starting to fill up now, which is not to my advantage. Alright, so here's one of the things when the board is starting to fill up, is that you have to be conscious of the fact that whenever you move, a 4 or a 2 is going to spawn in one of the available spots. And in this case, I'm going to move this 2, and it's going to go down to fill the other available spot. And one of two things is going to happen. Either a 2 is going to spawn there, or a 4 is going to spawn there, which will fill the board with tiles. But it won't be a problem, because I can still make a move, because if it's a 2, I can combine it with a 2. That will now be occupying the space below it. If it's a 4, I can combine it with that 4. And, either way, I think things are going to work out fine. But it's, one thing that as the board starts to fill up, you kind of have to become more and more aware of. So I move that down, and it's a 2. And actually, I wasn't even thinking of the fact that those two 4s are going to combine into an 8. So I'm just going to call that a little bonus. All right. Oh, no. Ugh, okay, so I'm full up, but I got these two 4s that I can combine into an 8, and actually no, this is actually going to be a pretty good situation for me, because I can combine these two 4s into an 8, two 8s into a 16, two 16s into a 32, into a 64, into a 128, which is exactly what I needed before, into a 256, and down into a 512. So I'm actually doing pretty well, despite the fact that the board is starting to look kind of full. Alright, so up here I've got my 8, which is about to become a 16, and a 32, and combine that in. Alright, things are looking good. I need to get another 128 up there so I can combine it with the 128 below it, and turn that into a 256. I mean, I keep saying these obvious things, but at least they're obvious to me, because, combining tiles is all you do in this damn game, but it's sometimes helpful to sort of think through what your goal is, and that guides your tile movements. All right, I got a 64 up there. And, the thing about this is I've got a 64, and I've got a 64 on the diagonal. It's very tempting to, think to myself, oh, I wish I could combine those two. But the thing is, you can't. I mean, there might be a way to do it where I can move heaven and earth to get those two to combine, but I'm probably better off just abandoning the hopeless dream of combining those two 64s, and instead focus on the much more manageable goal of creating another 64 right there on the angle. Because look, I've already got a 32. It isn't even that hard. I'm gonna look, because I've already got another 64, and that wasn't even that difficult. All right, so I got a 128 and bring that down. So 256. All right, so ideally, see that 4 and that 2 at the top. What I want is for there to be two 128s in that spot, because when there's a 128 above that 256 and another 128 right next to it, the game is won. That's a game-winning state, basically, that I need to try to bring about. But in order to do that, I'm actually going to need to move that 4 so that I can get at that 2 and combine another 2 with it. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to lay some groundwork below it so I can bring that column down. Alright, so now I've got an open gap where I can get a 2 right in there. And there we go. And combine it with a... Okay, yeah, look. So all you got to do is, keep things open as much as you can when you're dealing with low numbers in places where you need a higher number. Alright, and see, like I mentioned before, I've got that 128 there. So actually, probably the easiest thing to do would be to get a 128 right above it. And actually, that's not going to happen, so I don't know why I said that. It'd be nice if I could, but... Or if I get a 128 below it, turn that 32 into a 128. You know what? I think that's what I'm going to do. Ugh, what did I just do? That was dumb. That was boneheaded. Because now the 128 isn't even where I want it anymore. Alright, and now it is. Okay, so we're left with that situation, like I mentioned once before, where you got the 128 and the 129 on a diagonal. And I mean, if I could combine those two, then the game would basically be over, because I could combine the 128 into the 128 to make a 256, bring that down to make a 512, bring that down to make a 1024, and bring that down to make a 2048. But I can't do that right now, so I'm going to focus on turning that 64 down there into a 128. Right now I'm kind of playing it by ear a little bit, but I think things are going to work out for me. I think I'm actually going to win this game. Yeah, okay, so I got a 256. Combine that. And that's 2048. And at this point, you can keep going or try again. In my case, I'm going to keep going and see if I can get something bigger than a 2048. See how high I can get. In my case, usually at this point, even if I win the game, it's rare that I combine a 2048 with another 2048. I can't even do the mental math in my head, and I don't even know what's next after that. I mean, I guess that would be 4076? Not 76, 4096. Yeah, I'm good at arithmetic, aren't I? So, let's keep going here. I'm glad I didn't have to restart at any point, because that would be embarrassing. I mean, what kind of a Let's Player would I be if I didn't at least have some kind of ability to play the game? But really, frankly, this is just luck as opposed to any kind of skill. Or maybe it's the fact that I'm talking, which is kind of slowing down my play and keeping me from making boneheaded mistakes, although I did make a few. Alright. 128. Alright. Okay. At this point, I don't really have all that much more to say, because you've already seen me win the game, so all I'm doing now is I'm following the same basic principle, and I'm a little less frantic about it, because at this point, if I lose the game, it's less of a shame on my honor. A shame on my honor, I guess, is the phrase I'm using there. I'm good at words. See what just happened. Alright, so now I've got a 2 that's under my 2048, and this is a situation that didn't actually come up all that much in the previous game, but I'm going to explain what you do here. Basically, what I have to do is I need to take that 2 and turn it into a 4, into an 8, into a 16. I need to turn it into a 2048 in order to restore balance to my arena here. I need to have the largest possible number in that corner, because that's the corner I picked, and it's too late now to sort of realign into a different corner. So I've got no choice but to work on creating another 2048, and I say that like it's easy, like I didn't just spend the past God knows how many minutes attempting to make a 2048 in the first place. But you know, if I want the game to continue, I think that's really what I should be doing at this point. So it's my only hope, basically. It's either do or die here. All right, and it might just end up being die. All right, so at this point, I'm gonna bring that up. I'm gonna bring that down. Bring it up. Bring it down. Okay. Alright, got a full board. And, oh, okay. Alright, so I can combine these 8s to make a 16. At this point, when the board fills up, you abandon your goal of building and you start playing defensively. You start doing everything you can to open up space on the board. Because that's really all that matters when your board is filling up. There's no amount of planning that it's not even worthwhile to plan if your board is filling up. Because what are you planning for? It's like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, as the saying goes. Okay. Alright, so I've got a 256 down there, and as I mentioned once before, what I'm eventually trying to do is make a 2048 down there, so that I can combine it with the other 2048 and have whatever I said it was, 4096, that I can keep in that corner as the highest numerical tile. Things are getting a little hectic here. Alright, so... Fuck. Alright, here we go. To be honest, I think I'm on my way to losing this. Oh, no. Alright, I got a 512. That's actually not bad. I think I might have recovered. You know, sometimes recovery can happen just, all at once, and it's a blessing, and you gotta just thank the Lord your God, or whatever. Thank whatever. Okay. Alright. So, I gotta bring in... I think what I'm going to try to do now is I'm going to try to see that 8 on top of a 16. I'm going to try to use that to build towards that 64 128. And it worked. So I got a 256 down there. And what I want is a 512. And like I mentioned before, there is a 512 on the board, but it's not in a place where I can really use it, and I'm better off leaving it there for later use instead of trying to rearrange the board to get it to a place where it really doesn't want to be, all the while kind of dismantling all the work that I've done already to build a sort of stable foundation. To be honest, this game is going a little better than I expected to. I don't know how long this video is going to be. I might... Oh, fuck, why did I do that? It doesn't matter. I can just build a 256 under it, even though that kind of goes against the plan I was making. Fuck me. 1632, 64... 1632. Shit. There we go. Oh, fuck. Okay. Alright, got a 16 down there. Gotta make that a 32. It's a 32 now. Gotta make it a 64. It's a 64. I gotta make it a 128. And that's gonna take a little bit longer, but fuck me. Alright, game over. So I never got to make my 4096 or whatever it is, but that is, I thought it was a pretty good game of 2048. I mean, I won the game, so I guess I can't complain about that. Thank you for tuning in to Mr. Tom Plays 2048. I hope you found it entertaining in some way.